那这样一波打完的话，拓扑是可以直接一波推掉基地的。羽毛这边是金身躲掉了对方派克大招，但是自己还是得死。
熊熊直接开团，
后排入路先行被秒了，而且这边乌鸦这条炸的 OE 太恐怖了，乌鸦直接拿下了3杀。
虽然我们最近的状态有所回升，但是现在仍然不能放松。我们想冲进季后赛，今后的每场比赛都至关重要。
打职业这几年，我没见过不败的神话，所以没有输不起的比赛。反思失败，总结经验才是强者的心态。
我不想输，我想走得更远。我一定会拼尽全力挑战 RNG。
RNG 经历过风雨，也从不畏惧挑战。
我的天，同时小虎下面还想动杀蝎，打出闪现了，自己再跟着撒交一个闪现。虽然西野一个能走吗？扭身躲过神剑，我的天！事了拂衣去，深藏身与名。
我们走过春季赛的低谷，相信不能轻言放弃，因为一旦放弃了，就真的结束了。
前有猛虎，后有追兵，我们不敢停，也不敢有一丝的代谢。别忘了，我们是 RNG， 我们的路还长着呢。
Welcome back, everyone. We're now getting into our final game. Royal Never Give Up taking on TOP Sports, and it looks to be quite the matchup because TOP, again, this is a team that now in their summer split have found their 4th victory just a while ago, and I could hear Rusty yelling over on the other side. He's unhappy about something. We'll be getting to him in a second, and he can say his piece. But for now, it's Clement and I who get to take the best to talk about TOP versus Royal Never Give Up. Because again, this is an uphill battle. This is a 4-6 team against an 8-3 team. And even without Uzi, RNG are going to be real tough.
I think it's going to be a lot closer than people really expect because TOP right now, they're looking like a potential playoff team coming out from the Western Conference, while RNG without Uzi has been 2-3 in terms of series scores so far, not doing the hottest part on themselves.
And without that RNG, they could be showing a bit of an opening to TOP because, as we said, this team is on a bit of a resurgence. They just went 2-1 over JD. They've gone to 3 games against BLG, LGD, and IG just before that. So this is a team that is starting to show a pretty strong performance here in the LPL and could be in contention for that final spot in playoffs.
Yeah, they do have a lot of people nipping at their heels right now. We saw FPX and OMG all picking up wins for themselves, but TOP, they just had a great performance coming out from Corn, the Talon play like we just saw in the teaser right there, giving them that much needed win over JD Gaming. But I want to look into RNG
on the other side,
and look at what they are right now without Uzi, because this is a very interesting team so far. The biggest thing for me is how much they are actually flexing. If we read their roster, and it's currently a 7-man roster, they have 13 different player position combinations. Letme and Zatai especially have started in all 3 roles.
Yeah, and that's including Uzi. 8 if you include Abel as well, but right now Abel's the one who's kind of stepping in a little bit to fill that marksman role, while Uzi is currently off sort of resting after Rift Rivals, resting on his laurels, one might even say. But still, this is a very strong setup, and I like how the title you've got up on there as well, Royal Never Give Up Flexing, because they could just flex everywhere, and there's got to be a reason for that. We're seeing 2 top laners come into this. We're seeing 2 junglers for RNG. Why is that?
We heard Kesman say during Rift Rivals that it's all about the matchup and not necessarily about the lanes. And what this gives to RNG is, number 1, they can actually have more mastery on individual champions for players. If you talk about Darius, Zatai's the only one playing that champion, but he can play in 3 different lanes. And on the other side, you also have expanded champion pools for every single one of these positions right now. You effectively tripled your champion pools in some of these positions. So I currently think that RNG is the hardest team to draft against. You don't know where anyone is going until the last pick. You don't know what champion, which player is actually going to take up. However, with that being said, they might have gone a little bit too deep, too far into the deep end, because they're currently going 1-4 into their Bruiser bot lanes.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot more of Abel right now coming in and trying to stabilize the roster.
I mean, that's the hope with Abel coming in. As we've seen before, he has played that Yasuo before in the bottom lane. Not necessarily a bruiser, but still sort of fitting that non-marksman style. And with this sort of style out of Royal Never Give Up, that does mean that without Uzi on the roster, there is more room for other players to shine as well. I mean, we were talking about Ming. Is he still such a spectacular support when he's playing with Xiaohu as his lane partner, when he's playing as Zatai as his lane partner? And I think we've got an answer. It's yes.
It definitely is yes. And this is such a fun scenario because we can see one of the top teams play without their stars.
Yeah.
On Reddit today, one of the top posts is suggesting that TSM should bench Bjergsen and see what the team actually plays like.
Yeah.
And this is your chance to do that with RNG. And I think they're passing with flying colors. We're seeing Ming cement himself as one of the best engaged supports in the entire league. Their set against WE this week was absolutely terrifying to watch because he definitely still has that edge. We call him the one true support. He always sacrifices himself to keep his AD carry alive, but he can do it on the offensive end as well.
Oh, look at that, just tagging Mystic with the edge of the quickness and then landing the grand entrance. He had flash, and he still caught him. Now another player who's also stepping up is Xiaohu.
And this play is absolutely disgusting. What Xiaohu brings to the table is that he is the best side lane playing mage player that we have in the LPL.
Oh.
If you give him that chance, if you give them that lead, then he will take it to the side lane, spread the entire map out, and he'll give you that those plays like that. Remember, he even got a Baron out of dodging that 1v3, and we're going to keep this rolling for quite a while because these two people went 2v5 against 3 rotation of WE players in front of the home crowd.
That is so much, and here you can see they continue to chase it out. That's another one. That's the second kill before they turn onto the Nexus and end the game. But Royal Never Give Up. Again, they're 8-3. They've got Xiaohu. They've got Ming. These huge star players on the roster. Then you look at the jungle between Karsa and MLXG. Then you've got Zatai and Lemmy in the top lane. And then you add on the icing, the cherry on top, Uzi, waiting in the wings. Just like a final boss of a video game. You don't even get to face RNG at that final forum until you've already proven you can beat his subordinates. Now they're going up against TOP. And while TOP are on a bit of an upswing, it is still one heck of an uphill battle.
Yeah, TOP, what they want out of the draft is they want the superior jungle matchup, but I don't think they have the flexibility to match RNG in terms of their laning setups. They're actually a very stock standard team, and my biggest fear for them is that they're going to get lane swapped to hell, just like we saw Yuki be lane swapped against Doinby, play a bruiser against Doinby and completely shut down, because Corrin so far is pretty much has the same champion pool as Yuki. He plays Aurelia, he plays the Talon, he plays the Yasuo, but if you're going up against RNG, they put the Darius in mid lane. They put the Ornn in mid lane as well, just to counteract
And again, this has been an old problem for Corrin. This is a player previously of the Starhorn Royal Club organization that eventually became Royal Never Give Up. This was his former team. Corrin went to Worlds with Starhorn Royal Club, and ended up dropping in the World Finals. So this is a guy who dropped down into the LSPL twice with the Starhorn Royal organization, tried to play through in 2016 before finally jumping ship in 2017, and now in 2018, the summer split of 2018, we're starting to see him make a bit of a resurgence in this mid lane. He's got the fire, he's got the drive to succeed, but now he's got to do it against his old organization, and you can see him gonna lead the charge with Lies, XX, Chocho, and Cat as the feasible 5 are going to try to take this win against Royal Never Give Up in their own house.
The big note here is that Lies is starting instead of Moiryu, who has been their starter for the previous 2 sets. Moiryu had a great performance on those bruisers, but maybe Lies is coming in to show his own hand on something new. I expect a different champion pool.
And here is that 13-man flexible organization. It's Let Me, Karsa, Xiaohu, Abel coming in, and Ming keeping it close to his heart.
Oh yeah, they are settling down a bit more for Abel. They've realized that putting the top laners into the bot lane has not yielded them that many success stories, so they're going to go with Abel. He has been known as the innovator of the LPL. He started out with the double tier Ezreal. He's been known for innovating the AP Kai'Sa build as well. So, you know, you never really expect what you can see from this player.
And again, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Abel, he was the solo queue player who was accused of scripting at the highest elo imaginable, playing against Faker and getting called a scripter, so much so that they had to set up a stream for his hands so that you could see that he was actually pulling off these amazing mechanical plays. He just doesn't quite have the experience of someone like Uzi, which is hilarious that he's now sitting on the bench behind Uzi, learning from the master.
It's actually terrifying to think that one person came up with so many big meta shifts in professional while he was still being a streamer. Actually, one of the biggest things that he really brought up was that when he was playing in the marksman position, he would bring barrier and ask his support to bring heal and rush Ardent Sensor. A lot of people actually credit him from starting the Ardent Sensor meta in 2017 as well, which might not have been the best thing, but he still gets credit for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all remember how that Ardent Sensor meta ended up, but now he's got Ming next to him, one of the best supports in the league, one of the best supports in the world to help close out that bottom lane. The question is, will we actually get to see a standard marksman style out of those two, or will we see something a little bit more wacky out of Royal Never Give Up because they have that flexibility?
I think with Abel, they're probably looking to standardize a little bit. The craziest things he's played so far is the Yasuo pick into the bot lane. He started that in the Demacia Cup as well. But I do want to talk about a little about the new picks that are coming in.
I might have to cut you off here. It seems like we might be ready to get into game. Our casters are ready. We'll talk about those picks later, but casters, it's all yours.
Thanks, guys. Let's go straight into Championship because I believe the first match between TOP as well as RNG is about to start, Rusty. And
hell yeah,
it's going to be a great match to watch. TOP on the upswing at the moment in the LPL. RNG experimenting with their roster since Uzi is currently benched to an unfortunate reoccurring shoulder injury which he is trying to nurse. But Abel will be starting in his place today.
Yeah, so the first thing that we have to look at whilst we are in draft phase is the bans from TOP as well as what the picks will eventually become. So when I'm looking at RNG, if I wanted to play against them, and I really like the point that Clement raised, is they can flex players, they can flex champions, they can just flex everywhere that they would like, but Abel is starting today. So it's Xiaohu and Letme that will be doing the primary flexing through the draft and early game. So what you want to get rid of is champions like the Ryze or the Vladimir that could potentially go into two different lanes to remove the threat of Letme playing a tank in that middle lane. And so far, so good from the side of TOP.
You see them take away that Vladimir, as well as Zoe and Camille being banned out by TOP. RNG decided that Swain, Kled, as well as Aatrox are going to hit the bench. TOP with their first pick. They're going to pick up a flex pick of Taliyah, but if they pick this next champion, that should show exactly where the Taliyah is going to go. For the side of RNG, Trundle as well as Kai'Sa locked in as their first two picks. TOP are going to respond with Talon heading into the mid lane.
Not a surprise to see Korn play his Talon, one of his standouts so far, and you know, Korn hasn't had great performances through the LPL until very recently, where yes, Talon was one of those champions. He was able to get the assassinations off, expertly finding his way around the rift. Now, Orianna is also one of those other champions that needs to be brought up here. Could be picked, and I would prefer if it was picked third for Chocho or something in that bottom lane. Maybe even the Morgana as an earlier flex. And the reason I want that is because you've locked in a Talon. You've got a physical damage dealer. It means that Taliyah is now even more important through the draft to do all the magic damage. And that early lead now very important.
Doubling down on the physical damage dealers as Darius gets locked in as the third pick for TOP. So it seems like they've shown the top side of their map unless Taliyah or Darius do flex into the bottom lane position. For the side of RNG, they go towards Rakan as their pick of choice.
And they get the Kai'Sa, which will go towards Abel's hands. Now, an AD carry player, tried and true. He has got the Yasuo, but will rather be an AD. Not going to be like the Draven or anything hyper aggressive. Just going to the scaling choice this time around with a bit of magic damage still in the Champions kit. So for Letme, something like the Gnar still comes to mind, perhaps to aid the team composition, though it's a bit risky against the Darius.
Does have the range, but a single upper hand onto a mini-form.
It's not big range either, Fish.
A single upper hand onto a mini-form now could spell doom that lane itself. Taliyah in the jungle too has high gank pressure as well as roaming potential. We'll have to see what RNG decide to pick up to round out their composition. They have the final pick against TOP. Still have not shown what either of their solo laners will be. Whereas for the side of TOP, seems like they've already locked in both, so double counter pick is a potential for RNG.
Certainly is, and of course with the bans here of a Shen and a Pyke, support is going to be the focus this time around. What can they take from Cat is always the question. Now, Tahm Kench is up and available if they would like to pick themselves a conventional bottom lane, let's say, from top.
Sports. Otherwise, the Alistar also possible if you want to go something aggressive like that, Yasuo.
But no Pyke, no Shen, as well as Ornn and Ryze being banned out by TOP. Targeting the solo lane champions for Let Me as well. Xiaohu. Instant lock-in of Dr. Mundo coming out for RNG, so that should be Let Me champion in the top lane to go up against Darius.
And they go for the safe option. You can see the picture of Let Me on your screen with the Ornn horns. That man has had some fantastic games ever since MSI when he's been able to play the champion. Yep. Completely unlocking his team and even carrying as a tank, as a standout to be noted.
Yeah, the Rung is no longer allowed to pick up Ornn in the top lane, banned out by a couple of teams. Now TOP take it away in this match, but they lock in Karthus. That should be their bottom lane champion of choice. So triple smite coming up, Rusty.
Yeah, and you know what? We looked at it and we said, how about some Orianna for magic damage? And TOP were like, I will see your Orianna and I will raise you even more magic damage than you could ever imagine in a single composition. They have just got damage across the board. Their tankiness is not necessarily innately present, but their champion kit kind of enables them to be tanky regardless. And I'm very curious to see how this TOP composition does play out now that all 5 are secured.
You got a Fiddlesticks thrown into the bottom lane as well. So plenty of magic damage there. Whereas RNG's final pick, it's going to be Lissandra.
You know, Lissandra picked into the Talon. Has also got a smite for herself right now currently, so we're going to have 4 smites most likely. I would expect that Chalchal, whilst he could go towards the smite himself, it's usually just for the item efficiency. He's opting towards the teleport currently. I think against a Kaiser and a Rakan, that's still a little bit more helpful for having a laning phase presence above all else. I don't think that smite would help you survive their engage.
Smite was very common on bottom lane in Karthus throughout 8.12 and 8.13, but on the latter half of 8.13, before teleport got nerfed in the next patch, became the optimal summoner spell for Karthus in the bottom lane, going back towards a more Rod of Ages focused build. It's all about the back timing instead of going towards Ludens nice and early. We get to see TOP play with Karthus in the bottom lane. We get to see Lissandra on Xiaohu once again, trying to break apart this composition, lock a single target down, or potentially keep himself alive for a couple more spell rotations to deal with this damage-focused composition TOP are running today.
And I really like the Lissandra pick. I think that is the nail in the coffin in terms of draft in favor of RNG, in my opinion. But I would say the early game can very easily influence the game state far more than anything else. So for TOP, now that their draft has been completed, we mentioned its damage. It's good mixed damage as well between physical and magic damage. If they fall behind, there's a lot of tanks on RNG's roster. There's a lot of people that will not die to that pure threat that they have. However, if they get ahead early, TOP, they could just completely snowball this game out and run away with it.
They could. Tankiest member on TOP side is going to be Darius, but even whatever little bit of tankiness he had will be taken away by Trundle. Pretty much the only person he can throw Subjugate down on during these team fights. Not going to give him a massive amounts of resistances that you would see if he was to use it on someone like Sejuani or Dr. Mundo.
The Trundle is the champion running the biggest risks here for RNG, with no tanks really to sap away any resistances from. Does run the risk of dying, especially with the AoE that's just incidentally running around and killing him during team fights. And in those 5v5s, I'd say Kasa has got a very difficult job here, but so does Xiaohu, as they're all going to be pretty much frontlining and protecting Abel, who should be able to freely hit in the back. Now that's the place that you'll have to be looking at, because realistically, TOP, we'll get into their draft and how it'll execute without a tank once we are onto the Rift. For RNG, it is a bit more front to back. It's a bit more obvious in how it is meant to play out when you've got Ming on the engage tool and you've got tanks to sit there to empower him further.
Pretty much front to back composition coming up from RNG. Dr. Mundo running in the top lane will be their main tank for this match, but not into the best of matchups. Playing against a Darius in the top lane, it's no easy feat if you're Dr. Mundo. You're going to be constantly put underneath your own turret. Dive potential is there, especially pre-level 6 against a Dr. Mundo, and Taliyah is going to be able to provide that ganking pressure, provide the pressure on the top side of the map against him. It's not easy for RNG during the laning phase, but they do have the front-to-back composition, whereas TOP, it's all about the damage they can deal from early to mid-game especially. They're going to be trying to roam around with Korn. They're going to be trying to use Karthus, Taliyah, as well as Darius to run headfirst into RNG. Well, we'll find out if it's actually going to work out for them. Let's get on to Summoner's Rift for match 1, this best 3 series. I want that guy's job, Rusty. I want to stand at the Beijing arena and wave the RNG flag. That looks like a fun job.
It's a great job to have alongside even beating the drum in WE's venue in Xi'an. All of these teams do have their own specific intros now for every home arena. RNG being based in Beijing, they have now found their own unique version of it. It seems to change every week for them, honestly. I swear it was different last week.
Finding a new chant every time. Didn't you get to hit the WE drums when you were over there recently?
Oh, I did. It was absolutely banging.
That's going to be fun when we get to see the video of that.
Yeah.
Moving into this match in TOP as well as RNG. Seems like it's going to be a red buff start coming out from XX. Korn is going to take away Raptors.
Yep, now it is super important before we really get into this game's nitty-gritty to set the stakes here for both of these teams. RNG are 3rd in their respective conference and TOP are 4th. Now for TOP, they've got 4 wins, and that means they are matched with OMG and FPX in match wins currently in the LPL. So being tied in 4th place effectively, they desperately need the win to keep themselves above the pack to make sure they can stay in that playoffs position. So for TOP, it's a must-win game. For RNG, you do not want to creep any further down than 3rd place. The higher up you are, the better the playoffs run feels for you, the less games you have to play. So for RNG, definitely want to start getting those wins amassed now before they go back into regular conference and take on the teams above them.
As happened to them during Spring Split, wasn't too much of a bad move for RNG. They managed to climb their way out of the lower brackets.
They did the run. They made the full run at that, yeah.
But their run against Invictus Gaming was very close. It went to all 5 games. And if it was any other day, it could have been a 3-1 going to Invictus Gaming. A couple of those games were so close, down to RNG's Nexus being at 400 hit points.
And an idea without the Shy at that. So that'll always be a what-if scenario for RNG. They made the run. They got the MSI victory. And in mid lane right now, Korn.
Gank coming out onto Korn from Kasa. He's going to try and jump over a couple of these walls, but a pillar will stop him. He heads into Fog of War and uses his flash to disengage, but good gank from RNG to start this match.
You could see the decision-making process from Korn just there. I don't believe he has a point just yet in his parkour abilities, so may not have been able to dash safely over the walls, realizes that and chooses to walk into the middle of the river, opposed to going towards a wall where the pillar could actually trap you in. And he does get out alive, but with the Summoner spell gone, now repeat offenses are available for Kasa. And with Xiaohu being on Alessandra, even if you just wait till level 6, that should be a free kill.
Which his flash will probably be still down when Xiaohu ticks over to level 6, so we'll keep track of that mid lane later into the match. Got to check in briefly with the top side of the map. It should stay that way for most of this game, where Darius will be able to push in aggressively against Letme. No jungle influence has been made by either team towards the top side of the map just yet.
The rule of thumb with a Mundo lane is if you can control the wave, maybe make the minions stack and bounce against one another and run the risk of being dove. For Letme, he'll fall further and further behind. But if it stays even, they're able to just farm up and he can freely throw out those cleavers, then the Mundo will scale up and be unkillable by the Darius. But that's just general laning against a Mundo. The Darius's job is not necessarily to kill him, it is to smash the carries of RNG.
Well, the first few times you actually see those waves stack up will be right at the beginning of the match, around 3 minutes in, where Darius will be able to push in a large wave. No jungle pressure means that Letme is able to farm that. Next time will be when they get their next recall in. So Letme should be fine for now, but we'll have to keep track of XX to see if he starts moving towards top side of the map. Kasa reckons he can try and steal some chickens away from Korn, but he wins the smite battle, picks it up for himself.
I think that's pretty much all of them. Kasa just wanted a shot at the title.
The real loser is going to be XX though, counter jungled by a mid laner and a jungler from RNG.
I feel like that was going to happen anyway, and it's not like Kasa is winning while Xiaohu takes his own Raptors anyway. So there's no real victories across the board there. Time spent by Kasa, time wasted ultimately in the end, of course, as you noticed. And that does mean that it's time where he's also revealed. So XX winning a little bit more, let's say, than the jungler of RNG.
He's already had a recall and is hovering between top lane as well as mid lane. Taliyah going to try and attack that top side of the map. Letme in the middle of this lane. Has to be careful. Not level 6 yet on Dr. Mundo, but does have flash available.
No stopwatch, but that flash you mentioned may be enough to save him. You can see his positioning. Letme mostly just last hitting with cleavers. Oh!
Apprehend's going to pull Letme back, slowed down by Darius. XX is holding on to the flick back, but a flash away from Letme closes a lot of distance, but the flick does eventually come through. Korn's even going to rotate over, picks it up, donate it over to Top's mid laner.
And really respectable gank there from TOP. That was a very early flash coming out of XX, but he still hits the flick in the end, and that is all that matters. They get themselves the first blood. RNG immediately looking towards the objective trade, but it's an Ocean Dragon, and that really, really hurts Caster's health bar. So it's going to be a forced recall ultimately after this dragon is secured, you would expect, and RNG just flat recalls across the board. You take those. That was actually a lot of health back.
Takes down the Elemental Dragon, but this was the gank again. XX held on to the flick till after Let Me splash, but with Korn's rotation, there was just no way out for him.
Yeah, and it's all about the positioning there from XX prior to the gank happening. If he goes through the tri-bush and he is not spotted, then Let Me can't really afford to flash to safety at all, and even the Q direction from XX was thrown to prevent that from happening. If he ran back towards his turret, it would have connected, and most likely the kill secured from the moment the apprehend hit. And have a look at the items that Lies has gone towards immediately. That is the Anti-Mundo item build, to say the least.
Just ticked over to level 6 as well. Lies was not forced to use his teleport to get back into lane.
But note there is still a 10-odd CS lead for Let Me currently, so all things considered, could be a lot worse for the top laner of RNG, and I think what makes it worse is if they come back top lane. And what I am looking towards right now is level 6 on Korn. So of course he's level 7 now, he's beyond that point, but more importantly, his rotation to top lane. He used nothing in that gank besides coming in to take the kill. He got a Tiamat from that as well. All he's missing is his boots of mobility, and then talent Roam bot is online. And that will be what most likely goes to top lane.
He has been able to cruise through the early game as well. Yes, the gank came in from Kasa earlier, and Xiaohu did tick over to level 6, but Korn's flash is coming back up shortly, so they were not able to return and punish him during that time. XX is now going to try and take away his own chickens as Xiaohu wanders into his jungle, takes away a pink ward.
The jungle mid lane plot thickens. You go get your blue buff solo and takes the Raptors during that time. Innovation coming out of XX to beat his own team.
Win-win situation.
Casa. Hard gank to execute. The pillar has to be perfect, but Lies has no flash, so that's where the Trundle can come in very clutch.
But he just missed his briefcase.
Lies dead.
Lies going to run towards the bottom side of the map. Apprehend going to slow them down. Good healing coming out from his Q, but he is dead. Let Me picks up that kill.
Lissandra was also in the river, so there was no escape to walk downwards. It was more a bait maybe to force a pillar out, but just smart stuff from RNG across the board. They get the kills. They capitalize on a no-flash top laner of TOP. And an easy one on the board, so it's not just a CS lead anymore for Let Me. The kill is returned.
Gives him some breathing room as well, which is important for Let Me on the top side of map, because that's been the point of attack for TOP. XX flicks over a blue buff and gives Korn his top up.
Another plot twist. Nah, of course that was intentional. XX had no smite this time, so they're not having war against one another. It was just secure. Damage mid lane, it's really good from Korn.
Xiao forced to jump over the wall, but Lies. Return gank coming into the top lane. Karthus ultimate's going to come through, but the ultimate from Darius will not. So RNG take down Lies once again, and TOP falling further behind in this top lane matchup.
And I don't think there was 5 stacks on any of those RNG members just on the backside. So even if that ultimate did in fact connect from Lies, I don't think the kill would have been secured, and he was aiming for the Trundle. So really, you look at it, you saw his health, you're like, Trundle might have been able to die. But when you execute your opponent champion here of the Darius, he was going to get health back anyway from his passive. That Trundle was going to be perfectly fine.
A little bit missed time, but creative effort coming up from TOP. So they attacked the top lane to start this match. However, since then, it's all been about RNG regaining control of the top lane. Everywhere else has been completely even. It's been a farm fest in the bottom lane as well as that mid lane. And all the action has been junglers going towards the top side between Darius and Dr. Mundo, which you say has favored RNG so far. That's a bad matchup that has now become in favor of Let Me.
You certainly would say it favors RNG rather significantly. A 0-2 Darius and his contribution to the game state's a difficult thing to really achieve. And again, we mentioned this during Champion Select, but with no tanks realistically there from the side of TOP. When you're facing down a tank that is ahead, you're going to have to focus him down first with all the damage that your composition's got. But when he's ahead, it takes a longer time, and that's so much time enabling the rest of RNG to deal their work. And really, they're going to have to find something back on the board. I still think it involves Korn. I think he is the MVP of the roster.
Korn as well as Cat are rotating through the red
They've
side
been completely unspotted here.
of RNG's jungle.
Oh,
XX
wow,
throws
that
out
pillar.
the wall, but doesn't go through with it. Cat gets a fear onto Dr. Mundo, but Let Me's okay for now. Korn's now going to try and jump in. Good damage coming out from Darius. Let Me will live. Casa now wants to turn this one around. Ming's going to jump in, gets a double knock up. Everyone's locked down. Crowstorm comes out. Cat dealing some damage, but Casa the one gets the first kill. Now turning around towards
Xiaohu's
line.
in.
Gets slam dunked. That's another kill going over towards them as they lock down Fiddlesticks. They kill him. Doesn't matter. Lies gets a double. XX shows up and returns the favor for TOP.
The second they get the resets there for the Darius, RNG may have wanted to back away, but Xiaohu comes in trying to make the play and can't really afford to get anything done. Not an offensive summoner spell, and whilst he's got the item spikes now, it's not even close to enough to try and give them that Team 5 victory. TOP were there, and they knew where their opponents were, and whilst it looked delicate, and it looked like it might have swung in RNG's favor, they still had the numbers earlier, they still had the damage dealt earlier, and so more of their champions were relevant throughout the fight.
Split decisions coming out from RNG as well. TOP set up for that gank, got counter gank, but still stayed focused. RNG couldn't quite decide who they were going to target during that fight, so TOP not only win the trade, they also take down the first turret of the match in the top lane.
The tragedy here, because you'll see what happens in this fight, first and foremost, the Taliyah gets cancelled by Casa's pillar. So fantastic stuff coming out of the jungler of RNG. Lemmy survives, and from here, Casa, confident with Ming that they want to engage and press forwards, but they stretch just a little bit too far to try and get the kill on Korn. That kill actually gives the reset to Darius, and that's where the fight is ultimately lost. And a great little stopwatch on the backside here by Cat, mid-Q from Xiaohu, saves his life. On two fronts there, TOP as individuals managed to play their opponents and get the resets.
That's helped out with Lies in the top lane, now has the gold to go toe-to-toe against Let Me again, so that should be once more a favorable matchup for Darius. And Korn was able to rotate, picked up a couple of assists for himself, has the boots of mobility too.
And as a note, the cost of that last fight was very high through summoner spell usage, but the bottom side of the map, particularly Abel, still has them where Ming does not. So if you're looking at a potential kill threat, you'd be looking at Ming and saying that Rakan, squishy champion, could be a free kill here, especially because he's gone for the coin start. And boot straight up.
TOP are also able to take away an Infernal Dragon, which is great for their composition. Plenty of physical and magic damage across every player on this team.
And enjoy it while you see it, everyone at home. That Talon has not upgraded his jungle item at all. If you're going to try and play Smite in 8.14 and beyond, you're going to have to finish that item.
Unfortunate.
And that's where it's okay to be a Smite AP mid laner, because the item itself is very efficient to rush. If you're an AD mid laner like the Talon's, a bit harder to execute on that.
Doesn't give you the lethality you would want, but it is a very efficient item to upgrade if you go towards the Warrior's Enchantment. Just the components into the upgrade itself is very efficient. Difficult to rush though, it puts you in a very precarious situation. But we're still on 8.13, so we still get to see these Smites running around in the mid lane. Get to see Korn trying to farm through the jungle. Xiaohu even going towards Smite himself. He talked about the AP carries and the efficiency there. He's rushed it today.
Certainly has, as has the Taliyah. So XX has got that one completed for himself. Very big is the Taliyah in the jungle right now with 83 CS and 101 scoreline. Able to make those plays, able to make those map rotations. And since we have seen Cat unlocked, I think best case scenario here for TOP is leaving the bottom lane as an island. Abel and Chow Chow scale in a very similar way. They'll both be dealing a lot of damage later on with 2 and 3 items completed. And if you leave them in the one-on-one, both teams are pretty content with that outcome. But a Fiddlesticks unlocked, Boots of Mobility done, is a Fiddlesticks that can influence the map incredibly well and get those ultimates off through places where there are not Vision yet. And this early into the game, Vision's hard to come by.
They might be able to lock down Cat though. He was trying to roam through the jungle. Ming collapses and capitalize on Xiaohu's initiation. They get a single pick, but Lies is here as well. Taliyah's going to join the fight. Abel gets knocked away. Cartha throws out the ultimate, and Casa's going to be the first one to fall. Let Me joins back in. Xiaohu jumps in, gets a double stun as Korn's going to fall as well. Let Me now chasing down XX, throws out the ultimate. We'll be able to chase him down. RNG get the picks.
And there goes RNG with their team fighting prowess once again. No Uzi, no problem for RNG. They still get the trade, and they trade up, definitely so. Now pushing in the middle lane is Ming and Abel. It's a 3-for-2 trade in the end, so whilst you look at the cost, it was very high, a rather Pyrrhic victory for RNG, but they get damage on the turrets, and they're feeling really good about themselves after that.
They also kill Cat to start the fight, so the support immediately falls for TOP. Give some good damage onto this mid lane outer turret as well. Reclaim the gold lead as well. Now 1,000 gold over TOP 15 minutes into the match.
We'll get to see this fight. Note that Abel uses his ultimate whilst the Taliyah also seemingly knocks him over the wall. So we'll see the direction where he throws that one. Because from the looks of it, he just used it on the spot and was knocked over anyway. But Karthus ultimate comes in, indicates some kind of trade here for TOP. But Xiaohu navigating excellently to survive for as long as he does and get the relevant damage down, as Letme's just whacking away with the briefcase through the entirety of that.
Just like they're whacking away with those sticks. I can't remember what they're called anymore.
Boom
Thunder
sticks.
sticks.
Thunder sticks? I'm not sure.
Elated with that performance coming out from RNG there. But crucially, they didn't allow Lice to get 5 stacks on his passive, nor the resets this time round. That's a deadly combo when you see that paired up with the ultimate that will come out from Cholcho.
Rotating up right now, Fish. You can see the Fiddlestick's already there first. He hasn't used a single thing. He died instantly in that last fight. But he has no stopwatch. So being aggressive, not an easy thing to do. And note that whilst the Herald is taken, RNG, they recognize that. They said they've collapsed far too quick. Concede the Herald, try and find the Fiddlesticks. Those mobility boots that got him there first also got him away first.
Plenty of mobility boots coming out from TOP. Both Korn as well as Cat running it. I'm gonna check in with some of the items that have been picked up. Dustblade is now complete from Korn with that Tiamat for his auto attack reset. Abel's gone towards the Rage Blade first. We'll be picking up Nash's Tooth next, so it is an ability power focused Kai'Sa we'll see. Whereas the Rod of Ages picked up by Cholcho. Went towards the teleport, so rushed the scaling item first.
Oh, that was a very early summon here of the Rift Herald in that middle lane too. TOP, I mean, RNG are here. They're not completely here, however. Ming has got himself a potential flank if they want to fight. We'll see how RNG played out.
TOP have all 5 members already in that
Ming
mid lane, and Ming jumps in for the fight. They lock down Cat. That's a very squishy support, but he gets back to safety. Disengage will come out from RNG as well as TOP. Damage has already been done. Mid lane outer turret down to just a sliver of hit points. Ming forced to flash there, but Cat just flashes away.
Yeah, I'd say that was a win in the end for TOP with the damage being done. You can see them still hanging around. Cat has got the ultimate, but he has no flash. Now, Ming flashed forwards from the flank to engage and only hit 1 target. So really, that was not a big hit from RNG. Still pressing forwards, however, is TOP trying to get themselves the turret that is merely a dream for them to achieve.
Throwing a bit of an ARAM in the mid lane during this time. Abel capitalizes on the fact that it's Summoner's Rift, moves to the bottom lane, takes the first turret for RNG.
I think that was a bit of a stretch there from TOP. They expected Royal Never Give Up to recall, to go back to base after that trade, and they feigned themselves that they were doing the exact same thing. In the end, they were there to hold a smite. Lissandra is very good at clearing waves, even if there's a cannon minion in that wave. So they secure it, and they get themselves a turret on the bottom side. Big win in the end for RNG after what could have been a promising little moment there for the Top Sports roster.
Very early use of the Rift Herald. Doesn't net them too much. They're going to go back to base and reset. Seems like Cat is stuck in this mid lane for now. Korn was able to push out the bottom lane and is rotating over with Cholcho to defend this mid lane outer turret. Both outer turrets in the mid lane are low for both teams, but Dragon has respawned. Ocean Dragon's going to be picked up by RNG here. No contest coming out from TOP.
Yeah, Ocean Dragon #2 at that as well for RNG, so they'll secure that one. No contest whatsoever. No Rift Herald to be traded with on the opposite side either, with 1 minute until the Baron is up. That is where they're going to prioritize themselves on the map, and most importantly, placing vision around that area. As you can see, TOP poised to strike once more. Taliyah wall, Fiddlesticks ultimate. Their engaged tools are always a viable thing, but they've been spotted.
Good job, Cat. Just walked straight into it.
He ate it. Damn cats and eating everything.
Picks up 30 gold, however. Kills the ward that was swept out by the control ward. TOP were setting up for a cute play in the mid lane. Fizzles out. It's RNG playing nice and safe.
And an example now of the lane assignments from RNG and the potential strengths they have within that. The Banshee's Veil is picked up by Xiaohu, and at that moment, he feels confident enough to go into a Darius lane on the bottom side of the map. Now, he doesn't have a teleport, so he has to pick the close lane when he does these types of movements. But it's very hard for a Darius to secure a kill on you if you've got a Banshee's Veil. That Apprehend can never hit unless a Q does, and you're pretty much never in range to throw that one out.
This is a great painting.
It's abstract art right now.
Picasso's finest work right there. TOP is set up for another play inside of RNG's red buff, the red side of the jungle, but Ming's able to disengage, jump back to safety. RNG still holding on to this mid lane outer turret. And TOP are still looking for these roaming plays. Cat, XX, Korn, all very mobile champions who are trying to roam between the mid lane and top side of the map. Darius as well as Talon currently holding on to the side lanes for TOP, whereas Chocho is now parked in the mid lane. 10 stacks on his Rod of Ages. Merla, Nomicon already complete for this Karthus.
Yeah, big item spikes for the AD role against the bottom laner of Chocho in this game. Through the mid lane as well. We're hitting that one-hit territory for Korn against Abel, and Abel's running Cleanse, so not the easiest thing to survive without that heal available. It's always something that you have to be vigilant of and keep your eyes out for. Korn has been very good at flanking people. He's been very good at getting into those positions to flank in the first place.
He has been, but so far in this match, RNG have not given them the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
However, a break in the mid lane allows TOP to push for that turret. They aggressively do so, no casualties, and they get the turret. However, Xiaohu's now waiting in Fog of War. Will spot out Korn moving.
Look at Korn's pattern there. He's hugging the wall on the far side. Instantly clear the way.
He might know, but does he know that the cavalry has arrived for RNG? They're trying to get up to the top side of the map.
It's a lot of people. He could ult straight away if he wants.
He has ulted, gonna run straight back. Control Ward spots out where he's moving to, and Ming gets the knock up. Abel takes his time to get Xiaohu the kill with Smite.
Come on, Korn, that one was obvious. You meant to use your ultimate and go towards terrain, maybe on the top side of the map. You've got the flash available, and he still doesn't even preempt Ming's engage. I think there were a couple of scenarios where Korn may have been able to play that one a little bit better, but it's good in the end from RNG. They get the kills we're after, as we are really feeling our abstract paintings right now.
This is so beautiful.
This is called Mundo in a Snowstorm. That is his W.
Yeah, so it's a great game of League of Legends at the moment, guys. You can see Darius is hitting the 3 throws from the 3-point line off the side of the touch. Something like that.
I don't know what you said at all just then.
Exactly. Hit a nice wicket from the 3-throw line.
Oh my god.
And looking good so far for TOP. We apologize for the technical difficulties that are going on at the moment. Remember, this game is being broadcasted out of RNG's home arena in Beijing, but we are streaming this live from the Shanghai Super Rare Mall Arena. As soon as we get back into the match, we'll be able to go towards that feed. Yep. So far, quite an even match between RNG and TOP.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at it on paper, RNG playing against TOP, you wouldn't say this should be an even game. I do think that RNG still have control of the map more than anything else. They've still got tempo. And we'll see a replay of what happens in that top lane as well. Pretty much the moment that Korn finds himself going down as we're back.
Put some Instagram filters on the Rift as well. But we are back. Nothing much has happened, but they do get a gank going over towards Lies. Lockdown, easy kill for RNG. Talia wanted to try and join that fight, but just separates the minions for some time.
I apologize, we jumped in very quickly. I was not aware that Xiaohu was behind enemy lines, finding Lies. The Darius goes down now 2 and 4.
Putting on his best Faker impression, hide on bush.
Remember that Lies is not usually the starting top laner so far for TOP.
It's been Moyu.
Yeah, do note that Moyu is the man who has been handling the reins in that particular role. So far, not a stellar Game 1 start here for Lies, as he replaces Moyu.
2, 4, and 2. Strong Darius pick for Lizo. This is one of his signature champions.
If your opponent's 4, 1, and 2 is a Mundo, you'll say that you're not having a very good day. Especially for the split pushing that will continue after this one. And in saying that, Letme's gone towards the Warmogs, so he does run the risk of being killed in a single fight. And I think that is a lot of the game plan here for TOP. That Warmogs is a conscious attempt here from RNG to sustain their way through a fight if necessary, weather the storm, and come into the forthcoming fights after that, and just be able to out-sustain their opponents. I think that is a smart choice when you're starting to fight around objectives and it gets very pokey.
Plenty of burst damage coming out from TOP though. You look at the likes of Karthus, has sustained damage, but plenty of burst, especially when he uses his ultimate. Then a Talon on top of you, a Darius with the reset ultimates. If they can survive, it would work out well. And I think that's what they're banking on, especially with Knight's Vow now being complete for Karsa, going towards the supportive build on Trundle.
You know, often with a lot of team compositions, you would define them as the sword versus the shield in terms of styles, but this one to me is much more like the broadsword against the dagger. For RNG, they're able to be very aggressive, but it's in little pokes constantly until they get that big engage from Ming. Abel's able to do a lot of consistent damage if the fight happens. For TOP, it's one big smack across the face. If that one connects, then they're able to win the game from that moment. I mean, as you mentioned, you know, Talia has got burst, Talon has got burst. Fiddlestick's also able to contribute a lot of burst, but that's through his ultimate, so it's one big punch And then for Karthus, he throws it down on all 5 members at once. So entirely possible here, as here they go.
They're going to go for the initiation. They lock down Xiaohu, but he gets over the wall in time. Follow-up coming out from Korn, trying to kill him, but pops the ultimate to stay alive. Abel can't find access to the fight. TOP take advantage of that, getting the first kill, but now the collapse is going to come through. Ming locking them down. 2 kills now going Trundle's way. Karthus picks up a double. Ultimate thrown out by Karthus. Not going to do too much. RNG should be able to reset this fight, but they get what they came for in killing the bottom lane of TOP.
And the Karthus ultimate on cooldown, not contributing to anything, just being used. It deters follow-up from RNG, it deters Ming from going back in whatsoever, but that's a big cooldown now completely gone, and RNG still find themselves in the driver's seat. They survive the burst combo, and I hope we get to see a replay of that one, because ultimately I was a little bit upset with the, let's say, hard luck that TOP found themselves.
Hey,
But
should've
Xiaohu
got
was
Xiaohu.
just gifted safe passage by the Taliyah wall.
Got over the side of the wall, close to mid lane,
But
back
you know
to
what?
safety.
You know what got him there? Is Cat's fear. He finds himself casually walking that direction, the wall hits.
no.
Even the claw was out there. Xiaohu surviving for as long as he does gives so much entryway to RNG to be able to collapse in this one, and no amount of stopwatches or Zhonya's hourglasses will save this fight from that point. Lies nowhere near the fray, not going to be able to join them. If he was able to deal some damage, maybe get that 5-stack passive going, Karthus ultimate could have done a lot more.
That's upsetting. The wall knocked Xiaohu over, wasn't even able to use the claw because of the fear. Unfortunate, but does help RNG in winning that fight. Now 3,500 gold is the
They've
lead.
hit the Baron.
And they start Baron. Kai'Sa does Baron very quickly, so does Trundle.
Certainly do, and they're not going to lose a significant amount of health from this with a Rakan to protect them. Let me
They gone in yet?
linebacker right now, trying to stop Korn.
They're trying to go for it. Smite comes through. Trundle picks it up, and RNG going to start the fight. Remember, Korn is not in this fight because Letme's kept him occupied the entire time. TOP going to try and turn on towards Trundle, but the rest of RNG are going to group up. Xiaohu jumps in, gets 2. Abel dives to the back lines too. Cap's going to fall first. Exodus trying to kite away from this one. Builds a wall, but RNG make him pay for it. Chasing him down. Taliyah's going to get slowed down. RNG will continue to hunt him down. They get Baron, they get the kills, they get what they came for, and now they're going to push for more objectives.
And clean decision making and team fighting from RNG. It's the Baron secured, the kill secured, the top wave already set up earlier, and now they've got the Baron buff to push that one down. With 3 members dead from TOP, and with just a Darius and a Talon left alive, I think defending this inhibitor is just a fleeting dream for TOP.
Korn and Darius going to try, so Korn and Lions going to try and do what they can. Top lane inhibitor turret
back away.
is going to fall. They decide to play this one nice and safe. They haven't gone back to base and spent the abundance of gold they picked up off the back half of that play. 6,000 gold is the swing that went in RNG's favor.
We get to see the fight again around the Baron. Of course, Korn completely removed from the fight, not able to touch anybody, as Let Me just stands there and delivers the pain train on top of his face. And the rest of RNG in a 4-man. They've still got Kai'Sa, they've still got the tank Xiaohu. Definitely still able to find the engage tools that he needs. And just like that, easy as you would like, RNG, they're able to get the fights. TOP, their composition is now behind against an abundance of tanky members, and XX's wall kind of just keeps them trapped in with him. That's not the place he wants them to be. Fight over.
RNG separating the fight quite well, killing Cholchol on the right side of the Baron pit, keeping Korn occupied, and then using the gap closes they had to jump over to the rest of TOP members once they split up the fight.
I mean, also waiting for the Karthus' death timer to run out so that he can't deal all of the damage if they walked through. I think it's good reservations here from RNG, and once again, you're seeing the strengths of them as individuals and coming together as a team. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
There's a double flank. Kai'Sa's not the only one. Letme's getting behind them too. XX is going to be locked down. Cat trying to do what he can, but he's a poor little kitty cat. Another one of his 9 lives taken away as a double kill. Goes the Little Tiger's way.
And you might be wondering how they got there. Not even I know is the answer to that one. I'm still wondering what they were doing there. TOP, they lose 2 members. XX Cat gone. Now 5 strong from RNG, pushing the bottom lane with the Baron buff still on.
They're going to push for the win here, it seems, because Korn's been locked down. Abel dashes in, gets that kill. Ming locking down the final member of Lies. Will use his stopwatch to stay alive for a little bit longer, but a double kill goes the way of Abel. RNG going to break the base.
At 29 minutes in the game, I think RNG have done enough to secure this victory. If they choose to play aggressively and go for it, they've got the item spikes, they've got the damage, and RNG, they want the win.
On to the Nexus turrets. We'll take down the first one. Second one's going to fall shortly after. Cholchol's going to do what he can, but Cat and Cholchol aren't going to be enough. Game 1 goes to RNG.
Fairly clean affair here from Royal Never Give Up. Of course, a couple of shaky moments through the early game, but shakiness was never going to slow them down. They find their momentum. All Karsa needs is a single in. They found it through the top lane. And through that top lane, they get the Mundo Snowball. That means that the team fighting from RNG is all the easier to achieve. Ming still playing very well on his Rakan, and Abel pretty much just there to clean up the scraps as a job. And he did very well at cleaning up.
He did. But RNG from start to finish played this composition quite well. You expected Darius to be locked down in the top lane. That's what TOP did to begin the match. But the response from RNG was, well, why not we just bring it back to normal and actually give Letme the advantage in the top lane. They ganked for Mundo over and over again, punished Lies in the top lane. The rest of the map was quite even. So RNG just waited and found the right time to strike, pulling apart the heavy damage threat that came out from TOP's composition.
Yeah, and you know, I thought that in the early game, XX started off decently well through the jungle role there, getting that early gank onto the top lane. But really, when you look at it, for RNG afterwards, Karsa was the person who was just outmapping his opponent in the jungle role, going towards the top lane, finding the ganks, bringing up all of the cavalry as well. There's one moment topside you look at for TOP and say that was good for RNG, a bit of a miss in the teamfight results. But even in fights that you look at for RNG, and you're like, it wasn't too great. They were still trading. They were still getting kills and still snowballing the top lane. And a Let Me snowballed is a game over, really.
And he was able to pick up and use that snowball to his advantage. Like you said during the cast itself, the composition coming out from TOP was so damage heavy that once the tanks actually got ahead, there was nothing much they could do to take them down. Let Me was a brick wall at that point. Even Acorn couldn't take him in a one-on-one behind the Baron pit.
I mean, they still picked themselves a hard-to-execute composition above all else. I think coming in the next game, just make it simple for yourself next time. Where's that Orianna?
But it seemed simple for RNG in that first match. To break it down a little bit further, let's send it to the analyst desk.
TOP bringing the heat with that game one. They absolutely tried their hardest, which bodes well going against the Rift Rivals champions. And yes, they don't have Uzi. You do have Abel on that Kai'Sa. Maybe his positioning is a little bit more suspect, but that didn't get a chance to be seen at all during this game because of how RNG played this out. That said, TOP came in with a clear strategy. It was up to RNG to deflect it.
I really like what TOP did here in the draft. They gave themselves a composition that's very heavy in the burst damage and very easy to take down a backline carry like Abel. They knew Abel was playing. They knew that he was most likely going to play in Marksman. And if you look at the composition here, a flash from Fiddlesticks, a Fear, and then a Shadow Assault coming in from the Talion, Requiem, Abel's just dead.
Yeah.
That's a very easy to execute strategy. And what they did here was they also gave themselves a lot of tools to snowball the early game. If you look at the top side, there's a global, there's actually two globals coming into you with the Taliyah and the Karthus, and then Talon can go into that lane as well.
The Fiddlesticks constantly able to get the Fear and CC.
Yeah, it's such a strong early game snowball potential from TOP. And on RNG side, I wasn't so sure about this comp because it was in the super late game, it's basically a 1 damage composition, and you're going up against quad threat. And at the same time, a lot of your lanes don't naturally actually have pushing power. Your bot lane's probably not going to go super well. Your top lane is definitely a losing matchup. And then you're going up against Talon from Korn. So it's a very difficult to execute composition from RNG side as well. And I don't think many teams in the world would actually choose to run this.
But that's where we have to talk about the actual execution, because yes, we talked before the show about how RNG are so flexible. Returning back to something a bit standard, they just go back to what's strong. Karsa ganks top twice and is able to get the outplay and equalize Lies versus Letme's Darius versus Mundo matchup. Where it gets a little dicey is when we get that fight just a little bit later on where TOP are able to get some gold back in just by getting the Darius reset. Again, that's always the snowball potential, but it didn't unlock the Darius to roam around. It didn't unlock XX to gank bottom lane and start putting that Kai'Sa behind. And that's where RNG's weight was thrown behind. They had that scaling Kai'Sa.
This composition is so scary if you have one of those pushing side lanes set up, because that means that you can create this area that you can deny vision, you can roam around, and then you have basically 2 semi-globals in Taliyah and Talon roaming around the entire map. So that top lane was of crucial importance.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for Lies, what he did wrong was I felt like the second time he died in the top lane was such an avoidable death. What he wanted to do, he wanted greed for a little bit more vision with his control ward, and he dropped his control ward at the very bottom of the river brush, and guess who was waiting in that brush for him? It was Jungle! Hey, hello! And it was very unnecessary because Taliyah was right next to him.
Yeah.
Like, he could have dropped it a little bit further on, just avoid the entire gank, but it's those small things like that that really snowball the game the other way for you. And later in the game, you saw so many picks from the Lissandra as well onto Darius.
We do have to talk about perhaps the weight of the matchup for TOP because they know they're the underdogs in this. They know that they have to perform and succeed against Royal Never Give Up of all teams. So perhaps with that pressure on his shoulders, especially with Moyu performing recently, that could be lies saying, I need to take the risk here to get more of an advantage later on. It does end up costing him, and with that Darius slowed down during the laning phase. When we got to those mid-game team fights, it changed drastically because we never did get to see those massive assassinations onto the Kai'Sa.
Yeah, the big thing here is the composition from TOP. They want to go in all at once. If they get the damage in, if they get the CC chain in, it's a devastating nuclear explosion. They will instantly wipe any single carry from RNG's side. However, they never actually found that 5v5 for where they went in first. In the crucial team fight in the mid lane, we actually didn't see Lies participate with the teleport. And then, from then there on, RNG always had the upper hand. They were always the one finding the picks first and always the one doing the flanking as well. And it's just a marvel to see them operate this composition. It's so difficult to actually do. And look at Lemmy. He actually predicts, anticipates where Corn is going to try to come in. Corn already had a Baron steal earlier on. And I have to criticize how Chocho actually plays this fight. Remember, he has the flash. He has the Requiem. He doesn't flash directly into the Baron pit. RNG avoid all of that Karthus damage. The Requiem can't come down at this point. Corn never comes into the fight, and Lies is already out of it as well. So TOP, they want to ball their fist up into a punch and throw it at RNG. They just never had the chance to do so.
Yeah, with RNG able to deftly outmaneuver TOP like that. With this style of composition, it shows their experience and explains why this is one of the best teams in the league. Yes, they're 8-3 right now in the standings, a little bit behind IG, and now I believe that also puts them behind Rogue Warriors and JD after their win as well, but they're still chasing that first place spot because, again, we're expecting Uzi to come back. This is not the full power of the organization being brought to bear against TOP. This is an opportunity for Abel to step up and show why he deserves to play behind Uzi, why he deserves to get some screen time as well. That said, we've got that game 2 coming up pretty shortly, and TOP, I like the audacity of the strategy, risky though it is, because there is a bit of personal... Yeah, there is a bit of this personal grudge match between Corn and the Royal Never Give Up organization, playing against his former world finalist teammates in this matchup. None of them here, tragically, as Uzi is stepping away at the time being, but we're not getting the chance to see him play that sort of personal fiery style against Royal Never Give Up because Royal are just playing as a team.
Yeah, they're just playing the Lissandra into the Assassin, and we've seen this so many times before. If you have such a limited champion pool and you have to show your hand every single time, then there's so many players that will just straight up hard counter you in the mid lane. You know, Doinby's been doing it with the Bruiser, and Lissandra has been the pocket pick for Xiaohu for a very long time. Actually streams this champion on meta, off meta all the time as well. They probably need to rethink that assassin strategy if they want to go up against a player like Xiaohu.
Yeah, and it's no surprise as he takes the MVP man of the match at 6-3-8 with a 78% kill participation, 345 CS, and his 8th MVP of the split so far. And when you've got Uzi on your roster, Karsa, MLXG, Letme, and Ming, to get that many accolades is quite powerful.
I think he's racking these up now that Uzi is not on the team because he's having such a great time now. I think Xiao is one of those players, if you actually think what he's done in the past, you think about 2016, he comes in, solo kills Faker, 2017, comes in, solo kills Faker again. And just this split alone, that play on Ryze, this play on Lissandra, going with the different styles of the side lane and the pick potential as well, it's just, you can't think of a better mid laner at this point, I feel, in terms of the style and how much he's actually carrying the team.
It's certainly quite a lot, and it's giving RNG some powerful points to play through. That said, we're going to go and take a quick break while we get ready for Game 2. Don't go anywhere. RNG versus TOP is going to be right back.
让我们把故事传唱下去，继续书写 RNG 的传说。